All right, for assignment 10, we're doing something brand new. And we are going to work on colorization. And we're not even going to take a photo for this because we need to work on something that we don't already know what the colors are. But we need to work from a black and white high resolution photo. So if I go to last semester's examples, I found this photo, which was a public domain photo from the Smithsonian Folkways collection. Smithsonian is a public institution paid for with tax money. They cleared the rights for this on their site, and so they listed as public domain. It is over 10 megapixels, which means it's a high enough resolution black and white image to print really nicely as an 8x10. There's like little problems with its scan. It's got dirt and fibers on it, and you're not going to find perfect black and white photos in the public domain. But what's perfect about this is it's of someone I like, a folk musician named Woody Guthrie. And what's nice about Woody Guthrie is I was able to find, pictures of his son, Arlo Guthrie, to get kind of skin tone and hair color. I was able to see depictions of Woody Guthrie in movies that were in color. I was able to see other people's colorized photos of Woody Guthrie. I was able to see paintings of Woody Guthrie and see what colors those use. So it's kind of a research project. And then most importantly, I think, and most helpful to me, I was able to find photos from that federal works project in the 1930s that are in color around the same time, true to life color that this photo was taken. And then using all of that, I was able to do my own version of the colors. Right? That all kind of worked. And it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's really easy to mess it up, but it's a powerful tool to be able to replace color. So this semester, to go with this folk musician theme, I'm going to use a guitarist and folk singer that Woody Guthrie used in his band a lot. Another musician I admire, a guy named Leadbelly. And Leadbelly is a fascinating character. So I search Leadbelly public domain under images, and I want to use the extra search tools for images that are larger than 10 megapixels. Right? And I'm looking for black and white images. And there's actually a color image that might help me. Also, the Woody Guthrie one shows up. There are some others of other people I don't know. But I'm guessing that's the same guy. This would be the color version of this. And then this is the photo I like the most. This one right here. It's also from the Smithsonian Folkways collection. And it's got some little debris on it. You see, this is actually a color scan of it. But I can use it. And it's definitely high enough resolution. So I'm going to save that to the desktop. Now, the other thing you can do, instead of just searching public domain, because that's not really a guarantee that it's going to be a public domain image, you can also, you make it larger than 10 megabytes, you can also go under usage rights and say labeled for reuse. Right? And that basically means that the artist, the photographer, has given up their sole rights to it, or that their rights have expired. And so that's another way you can kind of try to protect yourself. But ultimately, you want to visit the page where you see the image, and you want to make sure that on the page, it gives you the permissions detail. So this says, right here very clearly with the image, and it's a beautiful image, that this work is in the public domain. Now, as a student, that doesn't matter, because this is for your student portfolio. You are allowed for educational purposes under fair use to use people's work, to learn from it, but you're not allowed to sell it, right? You're not allowed to put it in a gallery show unless it is clearly a public domain work. And Wikipedia does a good job kind of cataloging those for you. So if I wanted to do a landscape, I might do this. And this is a public domain photo of the Woody Guthrie house. So that's your first part of this assignment, finding a large enough photo. Your next part of the assignment is to get color reference. So here's a picture of Lead Belly late in his life. Let me find some other images of Lead Belly that might give me color reference. And this, it doesn't matter how large or small they are. So here's Robert Crumb, a cartoonist I like, his portrait of Lead Belly, the colors he used. And he's a big jazz aficionado. So I could trust that he might have done some research on his own. From a early album cover. I don't know if that's that helpful. Or from a reissued album cover. That's pretty nice there. And there's not a ton to go on, right? But it looks like most of these representations give him a colorful bow tie. And here's a guy that's not Lead Belly, but in kind of a Lead Belly pose. Or maybe, he's like a look-alike, right? This is very helpful. So if you want to hire a Lead Belly look-alike for your parties, you can go to this guy. And so this can give me some nice color reference to use. And we're going to learn how to steal the color from these references and use them as our palette for our shot. And here he is with a guitar. Thank God for celebrity lookalikes. If I was doing a Civil War portrait, I would look for the Civil War uniforms. Here's one of Lead Belly's guitars, the same type. On and on and on. Other people's colorizations. So I just could create a big file of those, save them all onto the desktop. Okay, then the other thing I want to look at, and I'd recommend this for almost any coloring job you do. Let's look at some of those 1930s, some of the earliest color photography. And most of these come from the Federal Works Project, and they're actually public domain as well, because they were paid for by tax money from the federal government. And you'll see these beautiful, true-to-life representations, some in high-res, some in low-res, that show you kind of the textures and the fabrics and the colors of the day, right? Which is very different than today. So this is with, incandescent interior lighting. This is outside on a city street. This is showing the coloring, kind of the washing of panel buildings, which might be really helpful if I was colorizing this, to be able to steal that reference and kind of see the passions and how the paper blinds look through glass, all of that stuff. So So all of those colors are going to be helpful to you. And depending on if you have like cars in your shot, specific reference can be really useful for that. Skin tones, hair colors, all of that. This is one I often use just because I love all these different textures and varied colors. Okay, so I'm going to create a reference folder. It is called color reference. And the reason I'm doing a portrait is I don't want anything that has too many elements to it. Coloring is a lot of work. And I want to keep it pretty simple. And I didn't plan this, but basically this photo is the basis of this lookalikes photo. So this might be my most helpful color reference. Because the guitar is meant to be the same, the bow tie, all that is kind of meant to be similar. But notice it's pretty simple. The background's pretty plain, the colors will have a lot of impact. The most difficult thing will be kind of skin tones and all the subtlety. Maybe the wood grain, things like that. All right, so how do we get started? Well, if you have your own black and white photo, we have to scan it. And we have to scan it at a high enough resolution that it can print, at least at 10 megapixels. And then we have to do this. We have to open it with Photoshop. So I don't need this one open anymore. And then remember that this is a scan of a black and white print that had like cropping notation in it from the record label. So this was meant to be an album cover at some point. See that square cropping. But I don't want that color in my exposure. So I'm going to make a duplicate of it, Command J, and then I'm immediately going to go up to Image, Adjustment, Desaturate, which will take all the color out. Because remember, there is no such thing as true black and white photography. And this black and white processing is a little greenish. But if I desaturate it, it will take it to just pure values. And I need that. The next step is that I convert that to what's called multiply mode. And that looks really dark because multiply mode basically turns it into a transparent film layer and it will let anything come from underneath it. So then I'm going to make a new layer that's underneath that top multiply mode layer. And I'm going to fill it, edit, fill with white. And I'm doing that on top of my original exposure, which I've now turned off. Right. So now it is blocked with white. So that's my original exposure, a layer of blank white, and then my blacks and grays on top of it. But notice if I turn off different layers, it still looks exactly like what I brought in. But it's not. It's different with multiply mode. Now above the white layer, I make a new blank layer. And to do that, I use this little new layer icon that looks like a Post-it note. And I'm going to label this color. Okay? And I'm actually going to call it flat local color. We'll talk more about that as we work on this. So flat local color. It's like a coloring book. Okay, these are the three layers I need. I need the paper white underneath. I need the flat local color in between. I might even right click and make that red, so that's like the jelly in the sandwich. And then on top I need the blacks and grays. So it's like a sandwich with white bread on the bottom, dark bread on the top, and whatever color filling you want in between. I'll use the American spelling, though for some reason I never liked it. All right. Now I can lock these layers, the paper white layer and the blacks and grays layer, so I can't accidentally paint on them. And I'm going to paint only on the flat color layer with a nice size brush, and I'll use my style.